and welcome to StratNewsGlobal, and welcome to the second of our three-part series on science and technology, where we'll be looking at geospatial data. I'm Surya Gangadharan, and my guest for today is Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology. Professor, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Surya.
Sir, what is geospatial data? Let's get that basics right.
Very good. So, geospatial data, basically, there are two kinds. The first one is what is called positional data, which is basically a map, not a map, but you say, look, how does your terrain go up and down with a certain resolution? So it's basically, looking at as if you're looking at the surface of the earth or whatever is on it, and you are following the contours. So there's a basic foundational positional data. And of course, there is certain accuracy in measuring it. So lateral direction like this, can you resolve something which is, let's say, 5 centimeter here on earth, or 10 centimeter, or 1 meter, or 5 meters? So this is basically accuracy or resolution of that data. And similarly, in the vertical direction, you have a hill, you have some building, something going up and down. So with what accuracy can you resolve that height of the object? And so together, this landscape, if you would, is the geospatial data. But the second aspect of geospatial data, which makes it really valuable, is the map which is based on this data. So map is not simply an image, it's not simply this stuff, but also putting in the name on it. Is it a canal? Is it a road? Is it a hospital?
Okay, features.
Features, and that's called attributes. So attribute data. Now one can go into greater detail. For example, if you guys, this is a hospital. If you click on it, maybe give you information about how many beds are there. Is it a COVID hospital? What kind of services are available there? And similarly, for each of the attributes, when you describe it, then it becomes a very powerful resource for doing everything that you do, right?
And how do you collect such data? Is it through satellites?
So there are different ways. Satellite, satellite, it gives you an image. An image has to be then modified to create actually true geospatial data out of it, because it's a flat image.
Yeah.
And similarly, it doesn't have attributes. It doesn't have any labels. So that has to be done on Earth, identifying what this stuff is, and then putting in the attributes or characteristics of what you actually see on the map.
So that is to be physically done on the ground.
That has to be done on the ground. So basically, making map or surveying, one aspect of it is done through satellite, and the advantage is that it could be updated very fast because satellites go around.
Yeah.
Right. But there are other methods which are becoming now popular, because when you need higher accuracy, and we'll come to that in a moment. So it's basically flying a drone and have a thing called LiDAR, which is a sensor. So through that, you can get accuracies, resolution even as small as 5 centimeters, which means nothing is really hidden. Okay, everything becomes part of that map, if you would. So LiDAR and drones are the preferred tools for collecting especially high spatial accuracy data. And then there are other ground-based methods. In fact, this entire thing, which is part of Department of Science and Technology, is called Survey of India.
Yeah.
It is their mandate to map entire country and make these maps available to people, to organizations, to government, to everybody.
So when we, do you mean to say that this geospatial data about India is something which is very limited right now? Because we seem to see a sudden interest and expansion.
Yes, it's been limited because we have not been making use of digital technologies. So until 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, a whole lot of this data was paper-based. And this is based on techniques which are ground-based, like theodolite stuff, Many of these techniques are 250 years old. Okay, in fact, Survey of India is 250 years old, right? But now we have transited, we have transformed this thing into making use of digital tools with high accuracy. And this is what is bringing the revolution. Now, you see, to give you an example, this very empowering scheme called Swamitwa, was launched by Honorable Prime Minister. Uh, this is basically, in rural areas, people don't even have papers for their land.
Yeah.
Right? And this is all mired in very complicated mechanism, patwari, tehsildar, local office, some stacks of paper somewhere, litigations going on all the time. And if you don't have papers for your property, you don't know where the boundary is, you cannot take loan against that property. So what do? Well, you go to these money lenders, and then, the whole economy is hugely impacted negatively by that. So this Swamitwa scheme, what it's doing is that it's going to digitize. It has already started in tens of thousands of villages. It's going to digitize, the boundaries of individual plots. This is very ambitious, with an accuracy of 10 centimeters on the ground, right? And this has never been done anywhere in the world. And this is something so India-centric. So what will happen? You see, there would be greater resources coming from urban, centers, more money flowing into rural sector and empowering them, and the litigations and stuff. Very ambitious, because nowhere in the world have they gone down to what is called the cadastral level, meaning individual plot are being mapped and their boundaries are being mapped.
So just for clarity, the current GPS that we use,
Yes.
to navigate through our
That's
streets, that also comes down to a fairly
it is same. You see, so we with the liberalization and democratization of geospatial data policies that we have put out, India should have the ambition to have its own GPS, or even stuff that you see like what's called Google Maps.
Yeah.
Right? But of course, the accuracy of that GPS right now is rather limited for many applications.
Yeah.
So it may be a few meters, for example. So now we are setting up new technologies. One of them is called continuously operated reference system, which is a ground-based stuff. So it communicates with the satellites, and then there's a whole network of them across the country. Some states are already covered, and the rest are going to be covered in the next couple of years. What it would do is that even with your something like a smartphone-like device, it will give you an accuracy through GPS, which now becomes 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters instead of 5 meters. So it would empower every citizen, every panchayat to do their own mapping. By crowdsourcing of mapping, you can do mapping of your own property, right? Just using a very simple device.
And it would be legal.
And it is made legal. Okay, so another very good thing that when I talk about liberalization of geospatial data, what was the situation just a year ago? The situation was that in order to do surveying, mapping, you need approvals, and those approvals were rather tedious, and they took 6 to 8 months, even for the government agencies like Survey of India. Now you imagine you need to do survey for making a bridge, for making a railroad, making a road, making any infrastructure, a dam, what have you. If these things are delayed by 6 months, the impact on economy is lakhs of crores. It's not simply crores. So this is what it would empower, these policies, that you would not actually have to wait for these approvals. At the same time, so that's the liberalization aspect. There is also a democratization of data aspect, which is that all the data which is with the government agencies, this data has been created with taxpayers' money, if you would, it should be available for others to make use of it, right? I can't lock up that data in my Almira and say, I will not give it to you, right? So there's democratization of data, which will give a huge push to development. So you say, what is geospatial data used for? Let's understand. It's used for planning of any kind. It's used for all developments that happen. It's used for governance also. It's used for disaster management. It's used for geotagging. What it means? See, any other kind of data, if you geotag it, then only it becomes valuable. For example, you say, look, okay, what is the rate of literacy in the country? But rate of literacy, there is an overall rate, but then you say, okay, in this area, what is the rate of literacy or what is the health status or what have you? So it's only when you geotag that data as to where it is coming from, then you make something meaningful out of it, right? So all of that is now would happen with the required accuracy, with the required speed, and the scale and accuracy that we need for all these things.
So this is being rolled out now on the ground?
Already done?
Whole of India has been geospatially mapped?
No, that process has started.
Okay.
So these guidelines and policy have now empowered both the public and private sector to undertake this. And so it is happening now, and it would pick up speed. You see, all of this is such an ambitious task. It cannot be done by government alone.
Yeah.
So therefore, we must have a level playing field, both for public sector, private sector, and in fact, collaboration between them. So that should become more acceptable. So there's a framework for that. Also, another important aspect of this policy, the guidelines, is that you see that the data of a certain kind, which is not, before I say that, let me go to another overarching principle, which is any geospatial data which is globally freely available should not be limited to our own citizens.
Yeah.
Right? This is so simple to understand. So if you have this, image coming in your Google, now if I say, no, I will not give this data to my people, or I will not allow them to acquire this kind of data, so that would be a little absurd. But that data which is more accurate, which is not available freely, that data, this policy limits to Indian companies, right? So that they have some advantage in doing that. Both, Indian companies, so I say, look, okay, if the accuracy is less than a meter or something like that, then, this data can be acquired only by Indian companies so that they can build their business on it. Of course, they can have a foreign partner company to develop new technologies, but not ownership of the data. So that data can be used to build applications on it. I'll give you an example what I mean by application. Let's say if you have a flood, now you want to predict where the waters are going to go if you had flood. So that depends on what your terrain is, what the map is, right? So building up this software, for example, on top of the data, you can, license it to some companies, but basically ownership of the data, localization of the data, the use of data and all that should benefit Indian enterprises.
This data can be sold to foreign companies?
No, so certain kind of data which is available elsewhere, then you compete and sell it.
Yeah.
Right?
No problem.
If a foreign company is selling it, why should I stop an Indian company from selling it? But if it is data of certain kind, of course, there may be restricted data also, which is, let's say, because of our security considerations, defense, and so on. So that would be off limit, okay? But the data which is in open domain and it is of high accuracy, then that can not be sold, okay? But it can, you can collaborate with another company to build applications on it.
Okay.
Right? So this is all part of this policy and guidelines, and the guidelines have already been released, and everybody was very happy with these guidelines. Finally, people realized that this would be the engine of growth of tomorrow.
Yeah. So we are looking at rolling it out. It's already started?
Now it's already, the guidelines have been released and people have started following them. Now we have also, we have compiled what is called negative list of attributes. Now what it mean? From different, government departments, whether it is atomic energy, home, defense, and so on, that, there are certain things you don't want to show on the map.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So those are called negative attributes. And so those things will not be shown on the map. And with that, you also take into account your security considerations.
Okay.
So you see, geospatial data has always been striking a balance between development and security needs. Now, if you can fully address your security needs, without diluting them, but then you open the sector for developmental needs. The policy actually does that.
So last question. We're looking at a huge business here.
Yes.
Would you care to put a figure on that?
Yes. So the direct business of surveying and mapping alone today is about, and building applications on it, is about 20,000 crore. In next 7 years, it would be 1 lakh crore. And there are people who are employed on it and stuff, but that's the direct. Now look at more spin-off and indirect impact. A lot of people are now building drones. That drone industry would come up in India. At the same time, like we said, the impact on economy is because of the application of geospatial data. That is several folds more than 1 lakh crore. Right? A very simple thing has such a huge impact, one cannot believe. Right? So we looked at one example, Swamitwa. What would be the impact of that on economy? Huge. If you don't delay your infrastructural projects for 6 months, what is the impact of that on economy? Huge. And all of that. So the impact actually totally mind-boggling. I think tens of lakhs of crores going down to the next decade.
And it's taken us so long to get there. Nevertheless, the fact that we are doing it is a good sign.
Absolutely.
Professor Sharma, thank you very much for your insight and that information.
Thank you.
And this is the second of our series on science and tech. Let us have your views and comments on it. Follow us on the website, StratNewsGlobal.com. Follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram. And looking forward to your comments and observations. Thank you.